And on the phone we have Mark Robinson, the CEO. And Robbo, mate, times are tough, challenging. You've been in it 4 months, not easy for you. But look, today, that big news to postpone club rugby. How did you come to that decision as an organisation?
Well, obviously, good evening, Jeff, too. Great to be on the show. None of these decisions that we're having to work through at the moment with these unprecedented times are taken lightly. So, right from when this, issue was taking shape from a couple of weeks ago, the main sole focus of the organisation was to ensure the safety of people. And over the weekend, obviously, there were examples of that when we had to look at people we had all over the world with our teams and management and staff. And key priority at that stage was to get people home safely. And then when we started turning our minds to, the impact of this domestically, obviously, our rugby participants and communities right around the country were forefront in our thinking. So we've had a lot of ongoing consultation with the likes of Ministry of Health, Government, Sport New Zealand, and a lot of our colleagues from codes right across the country. So when we balanced all the information from that consultation together and combined it with our own internal thinking and a lot of the experts we have in this field internally, we arrived at the decision earlier on today. So we were able to communicate that with our provincial unions, and then obviously we've released that more publicly this evening. And by and large, there's been a lot of acceptance of that being a prudent step and a very reasonable step to take to ensure the safety of our people.
Robbo, JK, betcha this wasn't in the job spec, mate. When it rains, it pours. Amazing 4 months for you, mate, and just congratulations on the way you've handled it so far, because not an easy time for our game. But what did you need to consider when it was apparent that Super Rugby, was about to be cancelled?
Well, like I said earlier, JK, the focus was on people primarily, and we take that very seriously. Our people, one of the core reasons why we've been successful as an organisation and as a rugby country for that matter for a long time. So that was forefront of thinking. Now we've got everyone home. The attention starts to shift to focusing on how we can make the best of this situation. So around the competition itself, obviously we've agreed, and it's been very clear that we've paused for 2 weeks, and we're quite excited about what we're starting to develop with our super clubs, with Sky obviously are heavily involved in some of the discussions we're having around what alternative products might look like. Our own people around high performance, our commercial partners. This is a process which is quite complex and detailed, and we just have to make sure we take people with us and think through all the permutations. But we'd like to think by the end of the week we're in a situation to share more detail, but it's obvious that this is going to be sort of revolving around a domestic sort of shaped competition, and we've got 10 to 12 weeks to look to provide some some rugby product for our fans. And like I said earlier, we're really excited that'll be live and exclusive with Sky once we're in a position to share it.
Robbo, it's Glenn Jackson here. How are you, mate? Just want to know, how did the franchise react around it? Are they all the same? Are they all still training, hoping for a return, or is there something that New Zealand's put out to them that they have to stand by?
Hi, Jacko. I guess the view is that some of them are taking the opportunity to have a bit of time off. They're very much in their own devices at the moment around how they treat this time, but we're in regular dialogue with them, on a daily basis around some of the opportunities. And we've actually, as I said earlier to JK, we've given them the opportunity to be involved in this process around what the potential looks like for the near term. So we've had some great ideas and feedback from them around not only what it might look like on the field and some potential, innovations in that space, but also a wide range of thinking around how we make the best of the situation to help, drive revenue, manage costs, provide something different in this market, because we know people are going to be interested. There's a lot of restrictions around what people can do at the moment, so we're very mindful of what our fans want at the moment, and this is a fresh opportunity we've got, and we've got to take the positives from it to make something exciting out of it.
Robbo, Nils Muliaina here. We've just had Andy Marinos, Sansa CEO, on, and he mentioned, this obviously suspended it for 2 weeks. But should we come, at the back end of that and come clear, and I understand it's really cloudy, he's talking about regionalising, the rest of the tournament, a possibility in doing that. Would that be something the NZRU would be, very happy and excited about?
Yeah, like I say, because of the restrictions in place, Millsy, we're sort of working to that brief at the moment around having to think creatively around, a domestic type competition. But we're obviously working, as I said before, with a sort of a complex range of relationships in this, and we just have to work with a whole range of different people in achieving that. So, yeah, we think it's a positive step. SANZAR are obviously coming out initially to advise of the decision, and then they've been very positive and constructive in the way they've allowed the national unions to get on and work through some different scenarios.
Mark Robinson, he indicated that he's had some conversation or contact, particularly as the Minister of Sport, with New Zealand Rugby. What has that looked like, and how much is that is helping you guys work through this, but also looking at the game going forward? And is any of that discussion particularly around the financial side of things?
Well, no, not to date. I mean, the primary focus, as I said before, Jeff, is about people, and so they've had we've kept them briefed around what we had to do over the weekend, and we've certainly had discussions leading into the decision today around club rugby. I think it's incumbent on us as New Zealand Rugby to take ownership of this issue and look to understand the size and magnitude of what we're facing before we reach out to anyone external, and we're going to own that. We're an organisation with a high level of capability in the business. We've got a board that's very engaged, obviously, at this time. So we're going to take some time during the course of this week and probably into the early part of next week to craft a bit of a plan around this. And then I think we'll be in a position with a pre-scheduled board meeting next Wednesday. We have a get-together with our board on Friday for a bit of an update. So after those two meetings, we should be in a position to communicate with stakeholders and any other core partners by the back end of next week, and we'll be sharing more information then. Far too early at the moment to say anything about assistance or anything like that. We know it's positive that people are reaching out, and people certainly care about the game in the country, so we know we've got a lot of support, but we just need to take a little bit of time to understand exactly what it looks like from our end first.
Anything changed with regard to the All Blacks, or is that way too far in the future for you to start thinking about?
But at the moment, we're working on the basis that the Welsh tests are being planned for. There's been no discussion, either with Wales or anyone else for that matter, that they won't be going ahead. But we all know this is a highly dynamic and rapidly changing sort of environment, JK. So we're going to have to just wait and see how that plays out. But at the moment, we're working on the basis that those games are scheduled to be played.
The New Zealand Rugby Players Association have sort of come out and considered pay cuts. How important is it to have their support?
Oh, well, they've been fantastic through this period in the last 3 or 4 days. And, I spoke to Rob Nicholas earlier this morning on a whole range of things. It's premature to probably go into the detail of what that might look like, what those discussions might look like. But it's clear, as I said earlier, that a whole range of partners are coming together and stakeholders at the moment to be supportive and to really focus on what's good for the game. And that's, hugely exciting for us because, at times like this, I guess, and we've all been involved in the game for, a long time, the values and the core beliefs that underpin our game in this country over the last 125 years is really starting to shine through. So that's heartening. I think, for now we just have to understand, as I said earlier, the size and magnitude of the challenge, and then we'll be working in a bit more detail with partners going forward.
Robbo, look, Te Puna under-13s are starting training next week. Bay under-19s tomorrow. The referees are training. What's the message to the wider community up there that, just want to know what they do? Well,
the directive, and there'll be some more details coming out tomorrow, but we're signalling that we don't, we shouldn't be playing competitive games of rugby and contact, traditional games of rugby. So that doesn't stop, clubs and schools and teams getting together and training, and we'll be providing some protocols in the next day or so to say what we think training in that situation looks like without contact, where we can take the appropriate precautions to ensure that, we don't put people in harm's way around this. So the appropriate distances might be the appropriate kinds of drills or training sessions. But our team are working very, very hard on that and making it available as soon as possible.
Mark, you've been through an independent review. There's a number of things that have been identified and this is before the coronavirus came along. You're now having to deal with this. Is there a way for you? Do you look at this as an opportunity? Everyone's talked about the word reset for New Zealand rugby. Is this a way, as a group, you can in some way start, I suppose, as we get through it, start forging that new direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think, there'll be the key thing to, I guess, to put in perspective. There's a whole lot of people around our country at the moment, battling with, different effects of coronavirus and what it's having either on businesses or families or different sectors and that sort of thing. So we have a huge amount of sympathy for people right around the country that are dealing with different impacts of that. I think the key thing around rugby is it can bring people together, it can inspire them, it can give them a release, it can provide fun and excitement. So we're focusing on what all the great things are that rugby can provide in our communities, in our country. So that's first things first. And I think beyond that, in terms of the future, business model and the future of the game in our country, absolutely we see it as an opportunity. It's a huge challenge, but I think anyone will tell you they've been through challenging times in business or any other facet of life, that out of those things come opportunity. And we're really focused on trying to understand, again, the magnitude of the challenge, and then we'll be, quickly and with a fair degree of urgency, putting plans in place to be able to work through it. We remain optimistic and really positive about what the future looks like. We just need a little bit of time to understand what that's actually going to look like.
Mark, I think you can trust that you've got the rugby community, you've got all of us here, I'm sure, at Sky, and the rugby fans out there right behind you, and they're wishing you all the very best in the short term and then going forward. As always, mate, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.